Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us for our webinar in support of International Women's Day 2024. So this webinar is titled Against the Odds, Women's Journey from Negative to Positive Body Image with our special guest today, Moon Waldén. So before I introduce Moon, I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping just before we start. So I just want to remind you that this is a webinar, so we can't see your screen and we can't hear you. And do keep in mind that some of the topics discussed in today's webinar might be challenging for some. If you feel you need to step away at any point, please do so, and a recording of this discussion will be made available in the coming weeks. Our support services are also available for anyone who might need to talk things through. If you have any questions as we go, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A and we will come to them towards the end of the webinar. With that being said, I'm delighted to introduce you today to our speaker, Moon Waldén. A native of Belgium, Moon currently resides and studies in the Netherlands and is a recently graduated psychologist. Moon's clinical experience is in eating disorders, having done an internship at an eating disorders clinic. Moon is currently a PhD candidate researching the clinical effectiveness of group schema therapy for eating disorders in comparison with CBTE. Moon has worked as a research assistant and has done a lot of research on body image with non-clinical populations, together with Dr. Jessica Aliva, Maastricht University. Moon's passion for this area also comes from lived experience of anorexia nervosa. So we look forward to listening and learning about Moon's work this morning. And without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Moon.
Hello, guys. Thank you for joining. So seeing the time, I'm going to start sharing my screen and get started. So let me just check. See? Yes, there we go. So yeah, welcome. Today, I'm going to talk to you a bit about body image in general, but also about a study that we did with women in Canada, where we conducted interviews about how they had transitioned from a negative to a positive body image themselves. So let me just run through the agenda for today. First, I'll just introduce myself a little bit. I was already introduced, but I'll just explain it quickly again. And then, as I said, I'm going to tell you a bit about what body image is and what we define as body image in body image research. And then after that, I will run you through the study findings from one of our recent studies. So what actually brought me here? I grew up in Belgium, but my parents are Scandinavian British. I was always a very outgoing girl as a child. I loved dancing. But then around my teenage years, I actually also developed anorexia. Successfully recovered from it in the end, which also sparked my interest in helping others recover and also spreading awareness about eating disorders and the impacts that they have in our lives. And now I'm happy to say that I've graduated. I'm actually doing a PhD in eating disorders. And yeah, I'm really excited personally, but also professionally about the topic. And my partner is actually a cook. So we always laugh about that with my family, that someone who had an eating disorder once is now together with an actual professional chef. And yeah, so that's me. Before we begin, I think it's important to mention that this is a safe space. So as mentioned, you can put in any questions that you have in the chat. And we will go through them later during the Q&A. That being said, we do have limited time, so I will try to answer all your questions at the end. But I'm really sorry if not all your questions can be answered. We'll also have a short break around halfway through, just so that we can stretch our legs a little bit and get a coffee, considering that this presentation is quite long and the topic can also be a bit heavy sometimes. Everything is science-backed. So I've also added a reference list at the end if anyone is interested in looking into the specific research that I'm mentioning. The study that I will be presenting further on is also available online, which I can share with you guys afterward. It is open access, so everyone has free access to it if you were to want to read the entire research paper. So what is body image in terms of the research we actually do, and how do we define it? So it's not only about being happy with your appearance. It actually entails a lot of different things. And your body image can be influenced by a lot of things. So we define body image as beliefs about your body, so memories, assumptions, and generalizations we make about our bodies, as well as feelings. So thoughts and feelings about your appearance, as well as senses, so the way you physically experience or actually feel in your body. And all of these three factors are also interrelated, so they're not necessarily all separate. But that is kind of how we build up the definition of body image. And a good model to explain how body image is influenced, and is specifically also negative body image, is through the tripartite influence model. So the tripartite influence model states that body image is influenced by global beauty ideals and how we should conform in terms of appearance in society. It can also be explained by different channels. So, for example, family, peers, and media, and how this affects our body image. So think about social media, the way your family related to food and their bodies in your childhood, and also how your peers talk about it. Then we also have mechanisms that influence our body image. So, for example, internalization and comparison. So as humans, we're very likely, and we tend to internalize a lot of ideals. So this also relates to the global beauty ideals that we internalize. And we also tend to compare ourselves to others around us, whether that be our friends or our family or things on the media. So that being said, all of these things are also interrelated. So they're not singular things that separately affect our body image, but that as a whole influence it eventually, and how we develop our body image. And negative body image especially has a lot of consequences. So not only in terms of eating disorders, our relationships with others, but it's actually a global health concern. It's been shown to act as a barrier to actually reaching our full potential in careers, in families, etc. It also worsens physical health, and it also worsens our mental health significantly. But what about positive body image? So positive body image has been defined in research as an overarching love and respect for one's body. So basically, that also means that positive and negative body image are not necessarily polar opposites. So even if you have respect and appreciation for your body overall, you might have days that you don't feel great in your body, and you feel a bit, yeah, just not very comfortable in it. But as a whole, you do appreciate what your body does for you and that it is there for you. And that's quite important to mention, that also in our studies that we've done on women with positive body image, they specifically mention this, that it's not about only appearance and feeling like you fit an ideal, but it's also accepting what your body looks like and what it does for you. And that not every day is the same. Sometimes we feel bad about it, sometimes we feel good about it. But as I said, as a whole, if we look back at this definition, it's an overarching love and respect for your body. So how can we actually foster positive body image? There's actually not been a lot of research on this in the past. A lot of research in the past was about how we can improve negative body image. But considering that negative and positive body image are not opposites, it's also incredibly important to study positive body image specifically. And that's how we, with me and my colleagues, decided to build up a study where we actually went and interviewed women who perceived their body to deviate from societal norms in some way or another, and who identified as having transitioned from a negative to a positive body image. These were women of all ages. We had, I think, between the ages of 19 and like 55. And we conducted 2 interviews with each woman. One interview being longer and more about their journey, and the second interview more checking in on them and seeing like, okay, talking about our findings and seeing if they agreed with what we had constructed out of their stories. And in their interviews, we specifically looked at key turning points in their journeys. So what sparked this kind of change in them, as well as strategies that they used and leaned on to embark on this journey and to continue on this journey. So we came up with several themes, and I'm going to go through all these 12 themes with you. And the themes are organized in such a way from the most common theme to the least common theme. So the first few themes are quite global. All of the women in our study identified with them. And the themes afterwards were more individual, and not necessarily all women in our study identified with them, but they did, but a minority and a little part of the women in the study did go through these changes. So the first theme that we found, and actually the biggest and most overarching theme, was enough is enough. And enough is enough acted as the sort of spark or why for their change, as well as the motivation for them to keep going. It also involved developing a sort of resistance stance. And important to note is that this enough is enough wasn't necessarily a singular moment. There was initially a singular moment that happened, but throughout their journeys, many of the women tended to have several of these moments that sparked and motivated them to continue going also when there were more difficult times. And Nixon in our study actually describes this enough is enough quite well. So she said, maybe that was part of it, growing up heavy and allowing people to dismiss me my whole life. I just had enough. I was like, this is some bullshit, something. I was like, I'm a decent human being, and to be qualified in life based on what I look like, I'd pretty much had it. So this was really the moment for Nixon that sparked her willingness to change her body image to the better, let's say. The second theme which came up was social connections and community. So for all of the women in our study, social connections were incredibly important for their journey to a positive body image. And especially finding new social circles. So new social circles that were made up of people who shared similar interests and values, and who were not so focused on appearance within the group. And this was an interesting finding because previous research actually shows that important others, such as friends, family, even colleagues, influence the extent to which we emphasize our appearance compared to other aspects of ourselves, such as our career or relationships, you name it, anything else in life. And additionally, research also shows that we tend to feel differently about our body depending on who we spend time with. So if we spend time with people who are very focused on their body or complain about their body, or see it in a negative way, that transfers to how we see ourselves. Whilst if we spend time with people who are accepting of their bodies and loving their bodies, we actually tend to mirror that and feel better in our own bodies. And Cheryl in our study explains this well. She said, they get it, and there was just that acceptance, I think was what it was. It was an acceptance of people who don't have to accept you. She and these two other women helped me see that I had more worth than I was actually giving myself credit for. And Charlie also depicted it beautifully. She said, just these people who act as a mirror for your experiences and sort of validate your experiences and your existence. These strong, outgoing women who may not be like positively received by society at all times, but are always fierce in the way that they need to take up space. Seeing that demonstrated to me, and also makes me feel stronger to take up space as a woman. And a third theme that we found was the importance of access to critical knowledge in the women's journeys. So this included literally everything from attending therapy, to self-help resources, listening to podcasts about body image and eating disorders, social justice issues, academic papers, joining minority communities. And even one woman explained how her experience with psychedelics, which I found very interesting, had helped her transfer into a positive body image. And what was important here was that the women learned alternative ways of seeing themselves and the world. They learned to challenge societal norms that they had grown up with, as well as distinguishing their own thoughts about themselves and their bodies from reality. And in a wider sense, also learning that they were not to blame for how they felt, because the wider society creates a certain picture of how they should be. And this is interesting in terms of, if we look back at the tripartite model, it seems that this access to critical knowledge actually breaks down the extent that we buy into the beauty ideal, and the way we filter messages that are implicitly transferred to us, for example, on social media. And Morgan was actually an academic in our study who took part, and she was especially interested in weight stigma, and she actually studied this herself. So in a similar way to me, how I sparked my interest in the field, she explained it like this. It was reading literature, like reading peer-reviewed articles, not the therapy that I would recommend to most people, but like reading research papers on weight bias and knowing, oh my gosh, it's not just me. So this also reflects the part of like, okay, we're not alone in this, and we're actually not the ones to blame for how we see ourselves. A fourth theme, which we found, and what was also important in terms of, if you look at how women approach exercise, especially coming from a negative body image, was that they were able to find ways of moving their body that felt good and brought joy. And this was specifically movement that emphasized their functionality appreciation. So not the way they saw their appearance, but really how their body worked and functioned. I think it's important to note that this was not a quick change. Many women went through years of finding a healthy way of moving their body and something that wasn't triggering for them. There were a lot of different things that fit each individual woman. One of our participants in the study explained how her running group at Park Run helped her appreciate exercise in a very different way. One woman found restorative yoga to be the thing for her. So it really depended on the individual. So some things might have been triggering that weren't triggering for the other. And previous research, we've actually researched this with my colleagues a lot, is body functionality. And body functionality basically includes physical capacities, creative endeavors, internal processes, bodily senses, communication with others, as well as even self-care. So it's really, really broad. So also appreciating just being able to take a bath, for example, and taking that self-care moment for yourself. and important to add to that is that it's not an able-bodied construct. So even if you are physically limited in some ways, focusing on your body functionality and appreciating the things that your body actually can do is beneficial for building a positive body image. Anastasia captured this very well. She said, the body image transition to what can my body do for me and what are its amazing abilities. And yeah, I'm reminded of that by going on a simple walk in nature, being able to lift stuff, like as simple as a crate, a case of water bottles. So Anastasia really started appreciating every single thing her body could do for her. And that, she explained, was kind of like a pivotal moment for her of realizing, hey, wow, like my body is more than its appearance. It's not only about what it looks like. It's really about appreciating the very simple things that my body does for me. Kira also explained this very well. Kira was actually the woman who joined the running group. And she says, it's people that want to make their lives better and be healthier and just like doing it. So it's not a chore to get out of bed and to run. It's people, you know, chatting, catching up with one another and saying, you know, this is the goal of the week. And we're just going to make people enjoy doing this and give you a reason to come back next week to show up and feel like you're part of this family. And for Kira, this finding of joyful movement for her was also linked to social connections and community. And yeah, I found that really interesting in terms of how all of these themes were also connected within our study. So do keep that in mind about how all of these things I am mentioning are also interrelated, right? A fifth theme that we found was adaptive appearance investment. So women in our study found ways to adapting their appearance of what felt good for them. So whether that was with clothing, haircuts, makeup, or tattoos, they found ways of expressing their identity that suited them. And it was really also about emphasizing different characteristics about their appearance that they maybe sometimes hadn't always felt comfortable with, but that they'd found appreciation for, and like having the courage to actually show that to the world. And I found that really amazing. For example, one woman in our study, she had been overweight her whole life. And she explained that going to stores to shop for clothes impacted her body image very negatively because nothing ever fit her the way it should, or clothes were just not adapted to her body shape and to her body size. So she actually decided that she'd had enough of shopping in stores, and she started learning to sew, and she started sewing her own clothes. And thus, it's also important to note that these were not behaviors that could harm the body, such as cosmetic surgery procedures or such things. And it was also not meant to camouflage or hide your body. So it was really an adaptive way of modifying your appearance to what felt comfortable for you. Previous research actually distinguishes between beautification and signification. And beautification, that's basically behaviors that are intended to make us look more physically attractive, and more physically attractive in the sense of societal ideals. And signification is more behaviors that are intended to signify some kind of personal meaning, or to mark certain cultural, social group, or religious identification. And signification was much more conducive to a positive body image. So I found it really interesting that this came up in our study, because there is actually research, also qualitative research, backing this up. And CMUS was actually, they saw themselves as a woman, but they didn't conform to being a woman in the sense that society wants a woman to look. So they explained that they started making modifications to their appearance in terms of haircuts and clothing, to help them feel more like themselves. And that was really a pivotal moment for CMUS in terms of deciding not to conform to the female ideal of, or the female ideal, let's say, that society puts on them, but really creating their own version of the woman that they were or are. The sixth theme was becoming older as well as wiser. So this really included caring less about what other people think, as well as feeling more secure in themselves. So a lot of the slightly older women in our study explained that they really came to develop a positive body image later in life, very much thanks to aging. So they also started accepting their changing bodies more, and the signs of aging. And this really stemmed from being more secure in who they were outside of their appearance. So focusing on all the other aspects of their life that became more salient. And previous research actually shows that, or points, this was actually qualitative research, but it points towards that aging can sometimes provide enhanced opportunities for positive transformations, specifically in relation to body image. And Diane really described this aging process very well, I found. She said, I feel like once you get to a certain age, you're just less interested in what other people think about you. And because I feel like maybe you know yourself more, and you know what you're like, or you know who you are, or you're probably better than anyone. And her quote really just reflects the kind of laissez-faire view that she created, where she just didn't care about what others thought of her. She was so secure in herself towards a later age that it all didn't really matter so much to her. And I was thinking right now we're kind of 35 minutes in, so we could take a short break, if that's all right. Around 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes maybe, just to stretch our legs, because I know it's a lot of information. and we still have 5 themes to go. So is that all right for everyone? I think we're just gonna. Oh yeah, we can't hear the other people's voices, but yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. Will we say a quarter past 11:15? Maybe would that give you enough time?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. We'll come back at 11:15.
Perfect. Okay.
Welcome back, Moon.
Hello. I hope that everyone is back. But seeing the time, I'm just gonna continue with the presentation. Let me see. So now we actually come to the more individual themes that weren't necessarily identified by all the women or the majority of the women in our study, but that we still found important to include and that reflected important events in these women's lives, which also really impacted not necessarily the start of their journey to a positive body image, but also moments in their journey. So we interviewed these women in, what is it now, 2 years ago we started the interview. So that was also quite shortly after the COVID pandemic, actually, like even during, I think we started, no, right after. But some of the women in our study explained how COVID actually had a positive impact on how they viewed their body. So, first of all, there was often a type of protection from the social gaze. So everyone was at home, everyone was in their sweatpants. So there also wasn't so much this pressure to appear put together or wear certain clothes, etc. It also limited the social comparisons that you were actually able to make, because you weren't really seeing people outside in the outside world. And if you were interacting with people, it was through Zoom meetings, team meetings, where you obviously also only see someone's face. So yeah, it really limited this tendency to compare ourselves to the appearance of others. COVID also acted as a sort of door to self-compassion in these women. So they started reconsidering their priorities and how they spent their time. So sitting at home kind of gave room for thinking about, okay, what do I actually want from life? And at first that might have been very difficult to process and to face, but eventually that was actually something that sparked them to do things differently in the future. So it posed challenges to the body image and well-being, but eventually the positive impact actually outweighed the negative impact. Additionally, it freed up time to invest in valued activities. So again, shifting the focus away from appearance and to other things that they valued in life. Also, it actually heightened awareness of mortality and the importance of health. So many women uh, maybe lost people in their lives and faced their own health challenges. We had some women in our study who had illnesses that were that could be worsened by getting COVID. So it really made, like, kind of forced them to take better care of themselves, uh, aside from only their appearance. This is quite a long quote, but I think it really explained why, for some women, COVID was really a pivotal kind of point in their journey. So Victoria explains it like this. She says, I started to listen to myself and what I actually liked, and not just what I was told to like. And I kind of rebuilt, I guess, myself in a way. Just as a specific example, I don't like to wear mascara, but I always would. And then during this pandemic, I was like, why do I need to wear it? Don't wear it if it bothers your eyes. And then I just kind of stopped wearing it and started to realize that I guess it's as simple as that. I can start picking and choosing what I actually like or what I want to do. So I started wearing makeup again, but only makeup I wanted to wear. And I got rid of a lot of clothes that I found myself never wearing because I just got them because I thought they would make me look how I thought I should look, but I wasn't comfortable in them. So I just got rid of them. So I think this pandemic, of course it's been terrible, but in a specific realm of my body image, it's been helpful. And I can just focus on myself and kind of think and get myself to a good point. So I think that's been, yeah, that was definitely a pivotal moment for me. So Victoria's quote really, I think, expresses all of these things that I mentioned in the previous slide. Oops. About creating more self-compassion, reconsidering the way she wanted to appear and the kind of makeup she wanted to use. And also that the pandemic did pose challenges to her, but the positive impact in the end outweighed the negative impact. Related to COVID, in a way, was that many of the women in our study suffered from illnesses and medical conditions. So whether that was physical or psychological. We had one woman, for example, who had vitiligo, and she described it really nicely, that when she was younger, she always loved her vitiligo because she felt like a leopard, and she loved leopards, and she would run around and act like a leopard. That was her thing. And it wasn't until other children at school started pointing out that she was the odd one out because of her vitiligo that she actually started feeling bad about it. But aside of that, that was just a little side story I wanted to tell. Illness and medical conditions impacted women in the sense that they realized that life is short and their time is precious in this world. And to shift to what was actually really important to them in their life. They learned to take care of their body because of, for example, one woman had an immunodeficiency disorder, and she realized that actually her appearance was such a small thing in her life compared to her health, which she really had to start taking care of. So women learn to take care of their body and also to treat themselves and their body with more love and compassion. And relating to the previous theme, this also highlights the ways in which a typically difficult experience, such as a physical disorder or a psychological disorder or pandemics, could actually be an opportunity to shift the mindset and to take the opportunity to start developing a positive body image and to make a change, let's say. Amelia explained it like this. She said, having the experience of getting sick, and so sick that I thought I was dying at some point when they didn't know what was wrong with me and they were just running test after test after test. Suddenly, all of those things didn't matter. Like the shape of my eyes, or, being only 5'3", or being a little overweight, or a little underweight, or having stretch marks. It didn't matter if I wasn't going to be alive anymore. Cleo actually suffered from an eating disorder, and she explained her view of her eating disorder quite well and how it had transitioned from when she had a negative body image to now when she's having a positive body image. So she explained, a lot of my identity was wrapped up in the eating disorder in a negative way, and how it ruined certain aspects of my life and prevented me from doing gymnastics more, or prevented me from being social in university because I was so scared to go out and eat or drink with other people. So I think it sucked a lot of life out of me. And then it's just interesting the way now, so now that she has a positive body image, I think a lot about my eating disorder, but not in the same way. I think more of what it's shown and taught me, and how I can take those skills and experiences and put a bit of a more positive light on it. Some women in our study also explained how changing societal norms had helped them. So, for example, one woman explained how she was always ashamed of her bushy eyebrows in the early 2000s. And then suddenly, at some point, I think it was a few years ago, bushy eyebrows were suddenly in. And she was like, whoa, like what I've always been insecure about and what people have always commented about is actually now in trend, let's say. And I think personally, that's a side note, there is a problem with the beauty ideal being a trend, but for some women, this was really something that did help. So also women that were more curvy and had grown up in the 90s when the thin ideal was in, for them, it was really important for their body image when these ideals started changing. Many women actually commented on the body positivity movement and how that had impacted them. So it really helped them actually to see a diversity of body shapes, sizes, skin colors, abilities, etc., shown on social media, as well as increasingly in mass media and also commercial products that are out there. And in this case, representation was really important. And previous research actually highlights the benefits that exposure to body positive media and also more diverse media has on body image in women, and also men to a certain extent, actually. CMUS, they were the person in our study who identified as a woman, but not wanting to conform to how society saw a woman. And they said that it's not necessarily people who look like me, but people who are othered by conventional beauty standards, who have still kind of carved out a space for themselves and who are comfortable with themselves, who are othered by society. So this really reflects the the increase in diversity and the increase in the idea of it's okay to be different, and you don't need to match the conventional beauty standard to be in the world and to take up space. Joyful and intuitive eating was also a theme. And women explained that creating a healthier relationship with food actually helped them create a positive body image. At the same time as creating a positive body image helped them increase their relationship with food. So it was a two-way street, let's say. But they explained that what really helped them was starting to see eating as something joyful, as well as a social activity. So one of our women in our study, she explained how for the first time in a long time, she went out to eat with her friends, and there were 6 of them. And on the menu, there were 6 desserts. So they all decided to actually take all of those 6 desserts and share them to be able to taste all of the different lovely desserts that were on offer. And this was really like a win moment for her, having come from an eating disordered background where she wouldn't allow herself dessert. So really starting to allow herself to enjoy the food impacted the way she felt and saw her body. But what was also important was that it wasn't only about the joy of eating, but also seeing food as a source of nourishment. So as sort of medicine for your body. So really taking care of your body and focusing on eating as a way of feeding yourself and getting enough energy in and being able to thus do all the things that they wanted to do in life. And previous research actually shows that intuitive eating, so eating following your hunger cues, not following a diet, but really just following what your body needs and wants, actually predicts greater body appreciation. And Victoria explained this really well. She said, I think I started to link those two, that, food for me has always been tied to a negative body image. But now I have a happy, kind of loving relationship with food. And I think that's kind of translated to my body as well. These are things I enjoy, and I think I'm kind of giving that to my body too. So this really reflects how, for her, the negative body image and eating were very interrelated. And as soon as she started improving her relationship with food, her relationship with her body also changed. Pregnancy and motherhood was also a theme. And here the importance was really about appreciating, again, the functionality of their bodies. So pregnancy, for the women that had been pregnant, it influenced them to treat their body with more care and also to see self-value beyond their appearance. So thinking about, oh, I can actually carry a child and I can bring a child to this world. It really changed the way they valued themselves. Many women also explained that they started to see themselves through the eyes of their children. So your children, they explained, would always see yourself as the best person in the world and the most beautiful woman in the world. And this really actually helped a lot of women to start appreciating those things about themselves and actually seeing themselves as a beautiful woman. And again, this theme also does highlight the ways in a difficult experience could be an opportunity to develop a positive body image, because pregnancy is not always easy. And some studies actually show that pregnancy can create a negative body image. But in these women specifically, they really took this as an opportunity to change that. Lily said, I really embraced the pregnancy and I was proud of everything. And so that finally something good in my life came along and that I could make it a bit nicer to myself. So it made me a little bit nicer to myself, sorry. And I realized my body was a miracle. Like I could do this. And, it just made me feel better about myself. Um, Spirituality, religion, and nature were also themes in the study. Many women, or a few of the women in our study, explained how either spirituality, religion, or nature helped them view their body as something bigger and inherently worthy of love and respect. And also seeing their body as part of a bigger whole, or in case of nature, as part of nature. So one of our women in our study, she likened the body to a tree. So would you actually treat a tree badly? Like a tree is a beautiful, magnificent thing, and it grows and it brings oxygen to the world, etc., etc. And that we should treat our body like a tree, she said. And previous research actually shows that engagement with spirituality and formal religion are associated with body appreciation, um, as well as connectedness to nature may actually help shift attention away from appearance to a more holistic sense of viewing your body, or a holistic embodiment. Diane explained, it teaches you self-love. And then you recognize that you have to love the body that you are given, despite the size or shape of it, or what a magazine dictates is supposed to be a desirable sort of thing. And some of the now we're actually at the end of the themes. But from these themes, we saw that all of these themes actually reflect bigger lessons. And the bigger lessons that the women went through were, one, I am more than my looks and I appreciate my body functionality. So again, relating to the functionality appreciation and thinking about all the wonderful things that your body can do for you. The second bigger lesson was I am more than my body. So they saw their body as being not their body, but themselves, as being more than their body, so that they also had other gifts to offer the world, such as being a mother, or being a career woman, or being a wonderful wife or girlfriend. A third bigger lesson was that I am more than myself. So women realized that they're a part of a bigger entity, let's say, and a bigger community. And they started bringing what they'd learned to the women and the people around them to impact society as a whole. And the fourth bigger lesson was I am inherently worthy of love, respect, and joy, no matter what I look like. So all of these bigger lessons are kind of the overarching umbrella of all of the themes that came up in our study. And if you want, you can later on read the actual article, because there we explain the bigger lessons a bit more in depth. So take-home messages from this presentation and our study. If you look back at all the themes, we had enough is enough. We had social connection. We had access to critical knowledge. We had joyful movement. We had adaptive appearance investment, growing older and wiser, the COVID pandemic, illness and medical conditions, social norms, changing social norms, joyful eating, motherhood, and religion, spirituality, and nature. And from these themes, I've kind of created these take-home messages. So the first one being, enough is enough. So what you can do, what you can bring home from this is try to crystallize your why for change. So stick it on your mirror or stick it next to your bed. Why do you want to change? What is your spark, let's say? Focus on positive social connections. So choose your existing company wisely and find people who support and uplift you as a whole, no matter what you look like. Find critical knowledge and seek out critical knowledge. So also be mindful of what you consume, especially on social media, Instagram. Unfollow all those accounts that are triggering and follow accounts that are actually having a positive impact on you. And actively seek out information that builds your critical knowledge about things. Find joyful movement. Find something that you enjoy doing as a sport. So find movement that really connects you with yourself and that feels good for you, and also maybe connects you with others, like a running group or a yoga class. Also engage in joyful eating. So and embrace your internal hunger cues, because that can really impact in the long run how you feel about your body. Adaptively invest in your appearance. So express yourself with what feels good for you. Do the tattoo you always wanted that has a significant meaning, or cut your hair in a way that you feel fits your funky personality, for example. And embrace difficulty. So really see hardships and difficult things you go through as an opportunity to grow and to learn from, because there's always things that are going to come in your way. But eventually the important things matter, and what you make of it is also the power of choosing what you want to do, if that makes any sense. And finally, let time really take its course. So the journey to a positive body image is an ongoing journey. And this was also reflected in the study. So it wasn't linear. There were a lot of moments where women had to be reminded of why they are doing this. And yeah, change takes time. So also practice some self-compassion, and practice, I don't know how to phrase that in a good way, but if I look back at what the women in our study said, was that there are times that it's not going to be as easy, but if you really keep on going and you see every moment as a learning moment, so looking back there, embracing the difficulty, you will eventually get there. Oh yeah, and also nature and spirituality. So find something that connects yourself with something higher than yourself. And it doesn't need to be something extremely religious or spiritual, something related to spirituality if you're not that kind of person. But go out in nature and look at all the wonderful nature that the world provides us, for example. See? And to just finish off before the Q&A for just 5 minutes approximately, if that's okay, I would like you guys, so unfortunately I can't hear you, but I would like you guys to scan the QR code, or let me see. I'll also share a link in the chat. I need to, I'm just gonna unshare my screen just for a second. But I have a little word cloud prepared. Ah, okay, I'm already getting answers in. Beautiful. So I'm going to share it. Right. I hope everyone's able to scan the QR code. I think it's working. But I'm not sure. Maybe I should send the link.
I think sometimes on Mentimeter, if you share your screen with where the answers are coming up, there's a code at the top that people can put in on
There's also
Mentimeter.
there's indeed 3 ways we can do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's paused. Ah. So yeah, you guys got the exercise. I want you guys to write all the things that your body can do. And also at the same time, try to think about, are you guys able to see the screen? Right.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, you can see the word cloud because on my Zoom it says that my screen is paused. Okay, good. So try to also think about what it means for you, and why you appreciate the things that your body can do.
It hasn't actually moved, so I don't know if, if it is paused. Yeah, maybe if you share it again.
There we go. I think now we can.
Yeah, I can see that
Yeah.
now. Great.
Any more inputs?
Some lovely ideas there.
Yeah, I think it would nice to have a screenshot of this, or we can make a screenshot after with the recording. But I think so obviously I can't hear everyone, but maybe we can add in the chat what this makes, a bit of like thoughts on if this shifts a bit the way we look at our body in everyday life, thinking about what all the things that your body can do rather than what it looks like. And also whether that kind of sparks any newfound appreciation.
If anyone has any thoughts, you can add them into the Q&A because we don't actually have a chat function within the webinar. So it would be the Q&A if that's okay.
Okay, the Q&A. I thought that was the chat. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Maybe we can leave the word cloud on for a bit. But if anyone has any questions, um, you can ask them in the Q&A chat, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Moon. That was a really, really interactive and informative webinar. And I think there's so many takeaways in that. And you've really nicely summarized everything at the end. I actually took a screenshot of that page to come
Okay.
back to myself
Yeah.
to have a look at those different elements. So it was really, really interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I found it challenging to try to put everything in an hour and a half of like also keeping all of the themes concise. So that's really nice feedback to hear that it wasn't too much, let's say, because also the paper is quite long and there's so much, it's also a qualitative research study, so there's so much information that I could talk about for a whole day. So yeah, I'm happy
I
to hear
can
that it was somehow helpful.
I can imagine it was probably hard to condense it all down, and it's also
Oh,
individual, and the different elements of it, as you say, are interlinked. So I'd say
exactly.
even to kind of pick apart the different themes was quite a difficult thing to do. So well done, it
Yeah.
really came across well.
Okay, good. Hmm.
I see a message there from Molly to say, lovely to see Hug coming up so much, shows how important our bodies are to connect with others.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I don't think all the attendees can actually see the Q&A, so I'll read out the other message we
Yeah.
had here. Thank you for such an informative presentation, Moon. So good. So many good things to take away from your presentation. I particularly loved number 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. So they liked quite a few of them there. Keep up the amazing work.
And maybe we're able to share the paper somewhere online, somehow the link to it, because it's an open access research paper. So then the participants who want, they could also read the more in-depth analyses about this from the study.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll share that. We're sharing the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, so we can put that in the notes as well.
Perfect.
I suppose a question that we had was around positive body image and eating disorder thoughts and feelings and kind of the relationship between the two.
Mm-hmm. So the relationship between body image and thoughts and feelings that come with an eating disorder.
Yeah, so I suppose does having a positive body image reduce the eating disorder thoughts and feelings or impact on them in some way?
Yeah, I think it's a very like, as in a two-way street a little bit. So obviously it's important to have access to help and also therapy in order to really work on the cognitive aspects of and the thoughts and emotional aspects of the eating disorder. But what we do see is that with that, body image also improves. But body image is also something for, if you look at therapy in general for eating disorders, body image is one of the last things that actually start showing a lot of change, because it's something that's very ingrained in us. At least also if you look at my own experience, I feel like body image was really one of the last facets of my eating disorder that I was able to improve and get over, let's say. But but then on the other way around, let's say, I do definitely think that improving your body image, and then in that sense seeing body image as a bigger thing than only appearance, but looking at body functionality and appreciating your body, can also have a positive impact on eating disordered cognitions or thoughts. I don't know if there is research looking at that exact relationship in people with eating disorders, but having a positive body image is definitely a protective factor to developing these thoughts. But in terms of when they're occurring at the same time, I can't give you a scientific answer on that right now. But yeah, I hope, does that answer your question? Kind of.
It does, it does. I can hear from it that it's not quite simple, it's very
No.
complex, and that it's a
Yeah.
bi-directional kind of relationship, and there are many other interlinking factors as well. But I hear what you're saying about the body image coming kind of later on in eating
Yeah.
disorder recovery, and kind of that relearning and redeveloping a different relationship with the person's body and their body image. Something that you mentioned in the presentation was around the idea of, I think it was beautification and signification. That's not something that I had heard of before. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about what signification is, particularly, because I know you mentioned briefly what beautification was.
So signification is, wait, maybe I can go back. Signification is really about expressing your, or like appearance expression, but from a more self-expressive, um, let's say, how would I describe that in a simple way? So behaviors intended, signification is basically behaviors intended to signify more personal meaning and self-expression through appearance, uh, rather than only looking physically attractive. Um,
Mm.
so that can be through your gender expression or through your personal clothing style, or also to mark cultural or religious things. So in the Muslim communities, for example, wearing a hijab, not like from a sense of, oh, I have to wear it, but wearing it as a sense of self-expression, but if they want it, and not from a social pressure or pressure from family to wear it, for example. Signification can also be part of, be part of something where you identify with a social group, for example. So let's say, yeah, what would be an example? I'm trying to think about so for example, different social groups dressing a certain way, or expressing their culture or religion, for example, in a certain way. And that is really signification. So using appearance as a kind of uh, as a sign, or as a modeling something that is broader than just appearance in the traditional sense. Sorry, that was a
That
really
makes
broad
sense.
answer. I tend to ramble on, but yeah.
No, I
I
think
hope,
that made sense, and it actually links in really well with our theme for Awareness Week last week was around identity and
oh, lovely.
individuality. So I think that really links in. Someone in the chat said a hiking group could be a social group that a person maybe identifies with, or expresses themselves through that.
Yeah.
Um, Someone else in the chat has asked if you would like to replicate a study in a quantitative setting across a bigger sample size to see if similar themes would come up, or what's kind of your future research that you'd like to do.
So unfortunately, I won't be part of this research in the future that much. Hopefully, I'll have some part of it. But now I'm switching research groups. So that's a bit of a pity. But I do know that my colleagues are looking into, especially the enough is enough theme, as well as the ongoing journey of developing a positive body image. But I don't know if they have plans to replicate these studies specifically, like in a quantitative setting, especially since there's already quite a lot of research that confirms our findings. So quantitative research that already confirms the aspects that we found or the themes that we found. But they're definitely planning on zooming in on some of the themes and studying those themes specifically.
Great. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you, Moon. I think we've just about come to time now. So the
Yeah.
time actually flew with that. So thanks everyone who joined us today. And as I said, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel after this webinar. So probably next week by the time we get it uploaded. So I'd like to personally thank Moon for joining us today and for hosting this really insightful and informative webinar in support of International Women's Day 2024. We're going to pop our support services up on the screen if anyone would like to reach out after the webinar. And with that being said, thanks again for joining us. And just to flag that our Eating Disorders Awareness Week webinars from last week will also be available on our YouTube channel over the coming weeks as well. So Barry's just popping the support services up on the screen now if anyone would like to reach out. And with that, take care everyone, and we look forward to welcome you on another Bodywhys webinar in future. Thank you.